Whitt Acres. It is August 12th and we're going to take another garden tour through the property and see how it's looking this time of year. Starting here off the patio where we're putting in the new decorative pond. And while we're going through the tour, I want you to comment down below what your favorite part of the property is. My favorite part is probably the pond this week because it is looking nice and full and lush, and all the plants are really hugging the stone, making the pond look like it's always been here, even though it's not even finished yet. So the pond is pretty clear all the way to the bottom. We did add some of the feeder fish in here and a couple of the bluegill. Haven't seen the bluegill in a while. But we have minnows swimming all around the pond and it's looking good. We have a volunteer zinnia up here putting on some color, and I have let this place go to the weeds. So you can see we have a little bit of weeds taking over. Oh, the hummingbird. The hummingbird moth is back. The hummingbird moth flies around to all the pink flowers. But deep in these weeds, we still have some beautiful gazanias that are popping up through. Push some of these weeds down, you can actually see some color. We do have this massive gourd climbing up over the dahlias and the bachelor button. It's pretty much climbing over everything around the backside of this waterfall. The impatient hedge got nice and thick. The oxalis is really trying to fill in next to the log. Not as good as the bubblegum petunias, but they are full, and the hummingbird butterfly is still in there enjoying himself. I have some sunflowers right here that have still yet to bloom, and a patch of dahlias right behind them starting to bloom as well. This lemongrass got absolutely massive. I wanted it to kind of hide this waterfall in here, and it is working out really nice. It's draping over the waterfall so you can't really see where it starts. Right behind that is a massive banana tree. Hopefully this is going to be hardy down to zone 5, because I'm going to leave it there and just mulch heavily around it. What are you doing, Pop? Just walking across the waterfalls, aren't you? You can just see how this gourd up here that volunteered right behind the waterfall in the yard has just completely overtaken this area. It's completely covered all the edges of the basin up here, making it look nice and natural. We got more petunias over here. Little secret waterfall popping out. The gladiola is finishing up. We had this nice one that was draping over the rocks, adding some color down here. I left it go. The sunflowers I do need to cut out. They're going to seed right now, and the goldfinches are coming through here constantly getting those seeds out of there. But these two little ones I can cut out, and I can let this big one keep blooming for a little bit, just to open up some more space in here and show off the zinnias and dahlias that are behind it. I'm not sure why the portulaca bed is not blooming more. You can see we definitely have some blooms, but it's the hottest point of the day and we should be having a lot more blooms than we do right now. I think it is kind of getting shaded out by everything around it. The cosmos back there. Here's some more dahlias. And then we have a zinnia that popped up, volunteered right inside the bed. This butterfly bush has gotten huge. I thought this was supposed to stay kind of small. I will probably cut this back all the way to the ground to keep it managed. We don't want really large things here in this bed, because then it blocks the view out to the barn where the animals are. Little zinnia bed here is doing really nice, full and thick. The yellow swallowtail butterflies are always on this one. They do go to the butterfly bush, but they definitely always come to these pink zinnias. Behind the mound here in the yard, I decided to mow the yard around it because I saw a bunch of volunteer zinnias popping up, and they're just too beautiful to cut down, so I just left this little hedge of zinnias popping up here in the yard. I have a nice tall amaranth right here. I started some of these this year, but they didn't grow very well, so this one is the only one I really have. I'm just letting it grow out here on the back side of the pond. Oh, there's one of them now. They like the zinnias for sure. This sunflower got massive and it's multi-headed, so I think I want to save some of the seeds that come off of this one. It got way too big for where we have it on the pond. It was a volunteer as well, so I left it. I thought it was going to be multi-headed like these little 4-footers, but it ended up being massive. So I want to save some seeds from this if I can get to them before the bird does. But look at this gourd out here. It's completely covered the stone wall. And it's just one volunteer. I think the stump is right in here somewhere. I don't know. It does begin right out from behind the waterfall, outside of the actual flower bed. So it's really just growing right out of the yard, and it's doing amazing. It's stretching all the way down that way and stretching all the way out that side. If you come to one of the secondary vines popping off of the main vine, you can find a female flower. which this is a female flower that bloomed last night. And you can see it has a tiny little birdhouse gourd on it. Just like pumpkins do, gourds are the same way, with the female flower having the fruit already there. And then once the male flower pollinates it, gourds are pollinated by moths. So you want to have a little bit of light around your gourds, so at night the moths are attracted in and they can find the white flowers that open only at night and into early morning. Typically only the moths will pollinate your gourds because the bees aren't out at the time that the gourd flowers are open. Another volunteer sunflower doing really well is this one here. It volunteered right next to our shepherd's hook. This shepherd's hook is always here. I put a begonia right here and it's been blooming gorgeous all season long. I also have the hummingbird butterfly wind chime, but this sunflower volunteered right at the base of the shepherd's hook, and if I tried to plant this myself I would have never been able to get it to grow, but Mother Nature got it here and it looks beautiful where it is. Now I'm going to show you the island garden, but remember, I haven't been able to weed. I've been busy with other projects, getting all the animal enclosures ready for this year and doing garden expansions like down in the veggie garden and other out front, but I haven't been able to actually maintain a lot of the gardens here. This is pretty much what I'm considering a construction year or a building year, and then maybe next year we can have a show year where I try and keep everything primed and looking really nice all season long. So as you can see, we let the island garden go to the weeds. We got the pokeweed coming out right here. I'm going to try and snap off because it is going to seed. This stuff is strong. We have the blue sea holly erigium, which still has some blue coloring to its leaves even though all the seed pods are coming in. We have some gladiolas that are still budding up right there. That one's blooming. So we still have a little bit of color out here. All the hostas and lilies and irises, they're all done. So I do want to come in here and just give this bed a full cleaning before it goes to fall. One of the new succulent style ice plants, I believe they are, is blooming beautiful right now. Look at the intricacy on this flower. Gorgeous. This other one's a lot more dense and tight together. You can see the flowers are a lot smaller as well. I thought they were similar plants, and I think they are similar, but they're not the same because you can see how loose leaf this one is compared to that one. So I'm not sure what the difference is, but we have a red one, and we have a pink one, and they do pretty well out here as long as the dogs don't step on them too much. I need to prune up this whole entire ivy line, get it all nice and straight, get all these weeds out of here, get some water in the bird bath, I guess. The calla lilies are finishing up right now, so the hedge is pretty much done along this path. You can see more weeds. Porcupine grass is doing pretty well. We have another white gladiola blooming right there. Coming through the path, we have some hostas still blooming, surprisingly. This is a burning bush, an annual burning bush, and I love it. It is so bright and lime green, plus it's super soft. And to make it even better, that thing's gonna autumn off into a bright red, which is just gonna be beautiful around the property, especially out front since I have a lot of that stuff out front. Around the back side of the island, we have a big blooming tree marigold, or some people call it a bamboo marigold or a Mexican sunflower. But this thing is kind of getting thrown around from the wind and the rain that we've had. We can see it's just a beautiful specimen plant, and it gets really large. It gets almost 10 feet whenever the weather's really nice. This plant does like water though, so with the drought we had in the beginning of the year, it didn't get to its full potential. If we had rain constant, this would easily get to 10 feet. Out here in the food forest, we have some tomatoes that are ripening up. Those are actually ready to pick. Also, my little row of beans, you can see this small plant is absolutely covered and ready to pick some beans. So I'll be either picking these for dinner tonight, or I'll pick some of these off just to get them off the plant. But I'll feed them to Mumbles the goose or the ducks and the chickens because they'll love some green beans. Now I am really disappointed in my Roma tomatoes. I think it's partially my fault for the way I was growing them. I didn't give them enough attention, but this is the third season I've been growing these Roma tomatoes to where they're tiny. So is that what they're supposed to be, real tiny tomatoes? Because if you're peeling these for sauces or salsas, that's a lot of tomatoes to have to peel. So I don't think this is the way I want to go forward with my salsa and other tomatoes, so it's good to find that out. So these Romas just have not been doing what I want them to do, so I don't think I'll be growing these next year. More volunteer sunflowers just blooming right here, and then I do have some planted on the back side of my potato row. And this one looks like a lemon queen, nice faded yellow. So I really do have to, I think, pick my potatoes. Out here along the edge of the food forest is my 100 feet of potatoes. And you can see that they're actually starting to die back. I believe they bloomed. I think this is probably the 3rd week since they've bloomed. So there's definitely some potatoes ready in there and probably not getting any bigger. I'm gonna reach in here and see if I can see one. Oh, look at that. Yeah, we definitely have some ready potatoes in there. So I'm gonna cover that back up so the sun doesn't get it. So coming up is going to be the potato harvest video. So make sure you subscribe down below so you get the notification whenever that video comes up. On the last section of my potatoes, we have sunflowers doing amazing right now. Those are the ones I planted in the back side of the potato mound, and they get all the sun that this maple tree blocks from the rest of them. So they get sun majority of the day. They're pretty much covering up my potatoes right now. You can see this grass. Grass is covering it up too, and the volunteer gourd. Oh, is that a grapevine? I hate these things. These grapevines are nothing but trouble around here. But you can see surrounding my mound is another gourd. If we take a look down here somewhere, we'll find a female flower and be able to figure out what kind of gourd this is. And that, to me, looks like a caveman club gourd. It's gonna have a real long neck and then a textured drum at the bottom. My small little patch of peppers is doing really well. I just harvested these peppers so my brother could have some to cut up and freeze, but there's a lot more on here that I'll be able to pick from. We also have another small little patch of bell peppers here with my calendula. And if we just take a look in here, I'm sure we'll find some decent sized peppers. I only ended up getting green bell peppers this year. I planted a variety pack, but they all ended up green, which, oh well. My wigwam for my tomatoes failed. Did not do too well. Tomatoes are doing fine. They grew, and I've been actually harvesting a lot of tomatoes off of this. This is my prime patch of tomatoes this year. If you go over and check out my Instagram, you can see where I've harvested some tomatoes off of this and gotten some really nice sized red tomatoes. I just have to work on getting them actually attached to the trellis and not sprawling all over the ground. But they are but designed. They are capable of climbing across the ground and still getting a nice harvest. Out here at the barn, we've been making some improvements. The Royal Empress out here is doing really well. We can come up close so you can see it through the sunlight. It's doing really well. We have a nice trunk here, even though the buck came and rubbed the crap out of this one. It is struggling back. You can see it has a nice half over here, and this half is dead. So it will compartmentalize itself and heal, and then it'll keep growing up just fine. Out here I'm working on getting a very large compost pile for the gardens next year. All the animals' poo goes right into this pile, and I stir it up to keep it nice and hot, and hopefully it'll be nice and ready whenever I need to spread it out on the gardens. Right now all the chickens and the turkey are out, just hanging out in all the enclosures in the front. And then I gave them this little fence bubble just to give them some grass out here because they picked the whole front enclosure clean inside there. So I gave them a little bubble so they can get out here into the grass. Are you gonna follow me, turkey? You're gonna follow me? And the ducks and Mumbles got a brand new enclosure. So we just finished this one up. I actually still have to mount the gate. The gate's a little bit big for the entry here, but I'm gonna make it work anyway. I just have to mount the hinges and get the gate on and secure. But we got all the strings up to protect from the hawks. Hopefully the house is gonna be big enough for them. They got all this fresh grass, and they are happy right now. You can check out one of our recent videos whenever we moved these ducks and Mumbles the goose over to their new enclosure. Yeah, puppy, you were there helping. You were there helping, buddy. You guys happy? You guys got nice grass? Huh? Huh, Mumbles? All right, so I'm trying to go a little bit quicker and get the whole property in this video just to give an update of everything that's going on here. So typically I will go into a little bit more detail on all the flowers and things that are blooming in the property, but right now I just wanted to go around, get a full update on everything that's happening here. Hey little froggy, what are you doing? So here out at the field pond, I did dig this out a little bit deeper and bigger. We just had the little small trench like we have over here. Kind of had one on both sides, and then I expanded this side up more just to see if it would fill up with water and hold water. And as you can see, it's holding water and it's holding life. So I think I'll be able to go through here and expand this pond even more, and then hopefully I can do that before the rainy season and it can actually fill up before winter comes and everything freezes and gets dry. Jump up. You like the pond? My main goal is to get the ducks to be able to run out of their pen down into the pond and then take them back up at night. I'd like to be able to give them some pond time, but I gotta get the pond ready first. If you've been watching, you know we added all these maple trees down the east line here, and I'm sad to say that we lost one. One of them definitely is dead. It's not looking too well, but we did have all the other ones, which I believe are 9 other ones. I think we planted 10 out here, maybe 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we planted 10 of them, and 9 of them are surviving, so that's pretty good. We do have the 6 Norway spruce along the backside, hopefully to fill in. Those are all looking pretty good so far, and the deer haven't done anything to them. We have more volunteer sunflowers down here at the end of the squash mound. The squash mound this year did not do well. As you can see, going out, there's not a lot of vines coming down that hill. So down here in the vegetable garden, the squash mound is pretty much a big failure. I don't think it could be much worse. We do have a couple live plants in here producing maybe a pumpkin, so we'll see if that one actually makes it to fruition. We have another volunteer squash actually growing here at the base of the blaze red maple tree. We've been trying to keep these watered, the new trees, the honey locust, but a lot of the other stuff down here I have not been keeping up on the water. We have some sunflowers blooming along the edge of the fence line facing the garden, looking beautiful. So my group of pumpkins that were growing out of the side of this raised bed here, not doing amazing. They made it out and then they're kind of just dying off. I think I planted too many close together, that even my zucchini died off. I have a cucumber right here. It's not doing too well, and I pretty much just haven't been looking at this bed enough. Didn't really pay any attention to it, really. We do have a little pumpkin in here. It seems to be okay and still growing, so we're gonna let that one keep going. I feel bad about it, but the vegetable garden did kind of take a back seat this year with getting all the animals up at the barn. So I wasn't able to put enough time into the vegetable garden as I'd like to. So I'm already planning for next year to try and make my work here a little bit easier and maybe downsize some of the things that I'm growing so I can focus more on certain things that I actually want to harvest every time. That way I can focus on fewer things and maybe get better results. I left this volunteer squash go that was in the middle of the J bed. It was coming out of the bottom. I thought I could get it to train out, but instead it completely overtook my bed, covered up half of my cabbages, got cabbage worms all through my cabbages, and then it covered up all my onions and stunted all my onions. So I'm really not going to have a big onion harvest this year. They're all pretty much stunted and small, and some of them are already finished up. So I am getting some white sweet Spanish onions that are only this big. So I did plant some things for the fall garden, but we haven't had any rain, so I'm not sure what kind of germination I got. If we look down in here, it is slim pickings. We do have a little bit of germination. I really should come down here and water because we did not get the rain we were supposed to. I just never know when it's gonna rain. The weatherman is never right, and where I live, it seems to not get the forecast that's delivered. I don't know about you guys, but right where I live, all the storms seem to scoot right around us, and whenever it rains in town, it never gets my property here. So even though the garden looks like it's just a weedy mess, we still have production happening down here on the plant. So the peppers are producing beautifully. We even are getting a nice big mortgage lifter tomato coming in. Now for an update on the giant pumpkin grow off. I am trying to grow a giant pumpkin. For those of you who don't know, I try and grow a giant pumpkin every year. I grew one that was 100.4 pounds, and I've been chasing that ever since. I've now got my colleagues at work as a competition. We're all trying to grow the largest pumpkin, and right now I'm in the lead, so let's go check out what pumpkins I have. This is the pumpkin patch, and you can see it's definitely taken over by a lot of weeds. Down in here we have a really tall pumpkin. This one is probably, I don't know, 13 inches tall, and I'm not even sure how round it is. It's pretty round. It's got probably an 8-inch diameter in there. Can't see if there's any more going along that fence line. Deep in the weeds here, we have one actually turning orange. This is not a giant pumpkin. It is a Dill's Atlantic giant pumpkin, but it's not going to get that large. It's already finishing up where it is now, which is probably only about 20 pounds. What are you doing over there, pup? Can't really step in here without stepping on a vine. Down in here is another pumpkin, maybe one of my biggest. And I have it covered up with a t-shirt right now. Hold on. That baby might be 30 pounds. Definitely has a weird structure to it. What are you doing, bugs? Get out of there. But we'll leave that covered. It's probably pretty close to being done, actually. Let me check. So if you stab your thumbnail into a pumpkin and it doesn't cut the skin, it's finished. So that pumpkin is pretty much finished up. I could cut that one out and weigh it. I probably should before an animal gets it. But I'm pretty much packed in here. If you can see, usually when I cut the pumpkins off, I do it all at once. That way I can come in here, rip all the vines out, get the pumpkins, find them. Because there's a lot of times you don't even see the pumpkin until you start pulling the vines out. A volunteer gourd or squash coming out of the compost right here. Look down in though. Looks like to be some type of marrow. So that'll be nice if that actually finishes up. I don't know what the rest of this stuff is. Had to find a female flower. Looks like a potato growing out of there. And of course, the Royal Empress tree is doing beautiful. It's definitely above 12 feet, probably pushing closer to 15 feet. That's such an awesome tree with the big leaves and how fast it does grow. So that is the inside of the vegetable garden right now. We don't have a ton of production happening right now, but like I said, this is a building year and a learning year, and I'm already planning for next year's gardens. Outside the garden along the fence line, it's looking rather nice. Have the portulaca, the calendula, the rudbeckia down here in the red, big white hibiscus with such a large flower. It's just gorgeous. We have the annual dahlias down below with the redbud tree just giving off nice foliage. That is a big weed. Jeez, that's big. Like I said, the garden has taken a little bit of backseat on the maintenance part. We do have some of the most beautiful sunflowers here along the outside of the fence. This, I believe, is the Topolini or Topoline, Mexican something. This is one of the multi-headed sunflowers that stay short, so I definitely want to get some seeds off of this when they're ready, because look how beautiful that is. And it's short too, so if you can kind of get an idea, they're barely 2 feet tall. Along the far side, we are getting some blooms. We got some more multi-headed sunflower. Just this massive zinnia head. Look at this thing. Just beautiful. That's got to be 4 inches across, maybe more. Did harvest one of these pumpkins. It looks like a moon and stars watermelon, but that's a pumpkin. We have some of the pink petunias down here, just putting off a bright spot of color. We have more zinnias and bachelor buttons for the pollinators. I plugged in a bunch of dwarf zinnias, and you can see that they're blooming right now. And then right here is one of my favorite flowers. This is the purple hyacinth bean vine. So this will actually produce a red bean shell as a seed pod, and it just adds the interest. Once it's done blooming, it still has a bunch of colorful interest to go. So this is planted here, and I have it kind of climbing the fence line. Hopefully it'll get to spread down a little bit more. More beautiful sunflowers down here. I believe they're the lemon queen. I've said it before, but I've put a lot of them out here, and they're the faded yellow compared to a much richer yellow. I did have a dahlia or two survive, and this is one of them. So this is one of the dahlias that survived overwintering, and it still has yet to bloom, so I'm waiting on that one. More sunflowers and zinnias. The bees are out here working, and the butterflies too. We got the monarch butterfly and one of the black butterflies with a blue tail. It's a little different. I believe that one's a blue spotted purple butterfly, but I'm not sure. Let me know if you know down below. Here is another dahlia that I'm still waiting on to bloom, as well as a nasturtium that's actually putting on some blooms. This is one of my favorite flowers as well. And I love the structure of this flower. It's perfect for a butterfly or a hummingbird. Get out of here, leaf. Perfectly shaped for a butterfly or a hummingbird to get in there. We have some marigolds standing out here. We also have one of the roses that I pulled from the rose bed still alive and doing well. I do have plans for this corner garden, but you're gonna have to subscribe down below because I'm not sure when I'm gonna get to that, but I will get to it and it's gonna be a nice video. So make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell notification so you're notified whenever that video does come out. Hey puppy, hey buddy, you staying cool here in the shade? Here you are, buddy. Good boy. It is a really nice day today, but we did have it drop down into the 50s last night, and it's supposed to drop again into the 50s tonight. So fall is coming, so maybe I should be harvesting those pumpkins. So out here at the pergola, this was supposed to be my jungle garden this year. It didn't really turn out the way I wanted it to, but it's turning out pretty well. We have the gourds kind of covering the ground all over this place, which is just pretty jungly if you ask me. It has nice big leaves, but it also it also has these apple gourds on it, which I don't know if I have them on the pergola. As I've said before, I like to put the vegetables throughout the landscape because sometimes where you do plant your vegetables, the bugs or the weather or something happens to them to where you don't get to harvest them out of that area. But a lot of the times whenever you plant, a lot of times when you plant your vegetables intermixed with your plants in the landscape, they do the best. That gourd is just woven through all this area here. We have the firelight hydrangea blooming in here. This volunteer tulip poplar is just gorgeous. I can't wait to dig this out and put it up. I think towards the duck pen is where I'm planning on putting it. But it's such a beautiful, strong tree, and it volunteered right there, just free to me. This gourd sticking out here is actually not an apple gourd. I believe it's going to be some type of birdhouse gourd, maybe a hybrid from all the other gourds I've been growing. So we did end up getting some elephant ears to survive, which has been nice. Some of the gladiolas were still blooming. This one just finished up yesterday. We have some calendula, and if I staked my gladiolas, I would have a lot longer bloom cycle going. But I didn't end up staking any of the gladiolas this year. So yeah, once they fall, I kind of lose sight of them. There's a couple of the cow lilies still blooming down this hedge. And you can see the Mexican sour gherkins did not climb too well. You really have to help these if you want them to climb, or they just drape down and fall. We have some gourds that I've been training up to the top, just about reaching, and some have made it. This one needs to be reattached. Get that back in there. There we go. Nope. Keeps falling out. Shove it back this way, maybe it wants to be on this side. Can't always put it where you want it. Sometimes you got to put it where it wants to go. Let's try and get it right in here. That'll do. We are getting the lattice covered, and they are reaching to the top, spreading across. We have a bunch of tomatoes down here. These are the blueberries tomatoes, and they're volunteering, just doing amazing. We have every different style. We got the red with the blue in it. We got the red and the orange, just red and black, ripe green one. We have bright red down here. Every type of ripening stage going on here at the tomatoes. I wanted it to feel a little jungly back here with the sunflowers framing it in, and then the gourd wall. The gourd wall didn't quite work out. The sunflowers are looking beautiful though. We have a lot of sunflowers blooming around the property, and these were all volunteers. I did dig up these volunteers and place them where I wanted them, but they were all volunteers from the start. And the silver lace arch is just gorgeous. I love walking through it. It did collapse in the last rainstorm. All the water kind of filled up the top here, made it real heavy, and it snapped the bamboo stake right in half. So I did have to replace it with this 2x4 and got it wedged up in there, got it retied to the post. So hopefully that's gonna last a little bit longer and not blow over in the next storm, because this thing is a big vine. I got it all pruned up so we can walk through without rubbing it, and I just love this vine. We have the Bellini crepe myrtle blooming beautifully here at the front of the pergola. The honeysuckle is filling up all the way to the top. I got it trained to where it's actually covering the entire trellis I gave it. So now I just have to keep it maintained onto that structure. Down in here we had a pumpkin that I thought was a gourd. So I planted it on the outside there, but it didn't want to climb. It just wanted to sprawl, and you can see why. And it's growing a pumpkin, not a gourd. The gourds have a nice and smooth vine. You can touch it, it's not going to prick you, it's not going to be spiky. And the vine is also solid. So whenever you push it, it's not hollow, it doesn't have an empty space in the center. But a squash or a pumpkin does have the spikes all across the stem there. And if you step on the stalk here, it'll actually crush because it has a hollow stem to actually feed a ton of water through. So that's how you can tell the difference between a gourd or a pumpkin or squash whenever it first starts growing. In this corner, we have the big elephant ear growing up beautifully. Another squash or pumpkin coming out here. I believe, yeah, this one's gonna be different. It's gonna have the yellow ribbed kind of squash on it. So we'll see whenever that one actually produces. Here's a little bit bigger of a one. This might actually be some type of pumpkin. So that'll be interesting to see what this one actually pushes out. I do actually save a lot of my seeds. So whenever you save seeds that have been grown next to other plants, you can sometimes get hybrids. And out of my gourds and squash, I've definitely been getting a lot of hybrids. On this post, we have a passion flower, which actually just reached the top of the trellis. Hopefully it's gonna start putting out some blooms because I didn't actually think this survived. It came up late and it finally made it to the top, but really hasn't done anything. So it has really nice foliage, but the blooms are really what you want on this plant because they are so beautiful and intricate. Plus it dropped a little baby, so I'll be able to pull this out. 1, 2, at least 3 little babies right there of the passion vine that I'll be able to pull out and give to friends and family, or just put it somewhere else on the property. Now this volunteer sunflower is actually one that is not placed great. It actually looks really good where it is until you realize that it's completely smothering out this coneflower back here. This purple echinacea just really has no chance because this sunflower is just taking all the sun from it. I've been able to get in here and take some cuttings from this coneflower. This coneflower actually won me an award at a flower show, so it's still doing work here on the property. Okay, so the last thing to really show you is the front garden, which, to warn you, I haven't done much maintenance on this one either. So I have been keeping it mowed, somewhat weed whacked, but I definitely still have a lot of weed whacking to do here. So we'll just run you through and just show you what it looks like. Oh, puppy. Off the front porch, we have some beautiful French dwarf marigolds, the allium and the coxcomb. Also a tiny little sunflower that bloomed out of the pot. Looking beautiful. So the front's looking pretty nice, kind of maintained. We have the burning bush ring around the hemlock, which I am loving. All these are just volunteers, and they came up just gorgeous and thick around this hemlock. And like I said, this is all going to autumn off into a nice red. So this is going to change, and it's going to give a different feel to the property out here in the front. Along the side here, we have a bunch more of the volunteer burning bush, and look how massive that one is right there. We have the gladiolas still blooming up behind it, and a little sunflower peeking through. Even the dianthus is coming out for a rebloom. So it's looking a little jungly out here, real full and thick. We have the Russian sage looking beautiful, some more gladiolas popping through, but the weeds have really taken over, and so has the volunteer morning glory. That's what all this vine is, and it is just covering this whole entire area. I do have vines, the cardinal climber, growing up this tree here, and it is blooming. It has really small blooms, red blooms, that the hummingbirds really like. And also this very ferny, where are you going, Robin? Real fern-like foliage, which is real wispy and soft, and I just really like the look of this foliage. We do have some Rosa Sharons blooming beautifully, and the sunflowers out here got massive. Down in here we have more blueberries, volunteer tomatoes, and if you look closely, I have a watermelon growing down in here. That is so neat. Down here in the weeds you won't even notice until you actually look. The front is just full of foliage. Puppy. And the Royal Empress is just massive, barely even fitting on the widescreen. Just gorgeous tree. I really do need to come in here and prune this next year, but just a beautiful tree. 4 years old, and just all this growth on it. Look at the size of that trunk next to Puppy. Huge. And the tree is definitely supporting some life. And one hollyhock over here. One. And it keeps falling over. Trying to hold that thing up, and it is struggling. And we come back out to the side garden, completely taken over by weeds. Big surprise. The blue jean baby Russian sage is blooming back here. We have the black-eyed Susan. Some of the coxcomb is popping up through there. I really need to come in here and do some work. Look at a beautiful Rudbeckia or Black-Eyed Susan. Something happening right here. I don't remember planting that thing. That's gorgeous. We even have some lilies still blooming. And then the limelight hydrangeas, just massive plumage. Love it. Nice soft cones. They're actually cool to the touch. They're not even hot. That's awesome. There's big old blooms on these hydrangeas. The hollies, not doing great. The hydrangeas, you can see they are doing amazing right now. Full bloom, just beautiful. I can't wait till these things actually get massive and that can actually block the road a little bit. But look at these plumages. I should really cut these for an arrangement. And the front expansion of this year is looking gorgeous as well. We have some hollyhocks right here doing some blooming. Look at this color. That is like a greenish white. That's a little different. I don't mind that at all next to the hydrangeas. It works. We also have a rose that we pulled out of the rose garden, and it is still alive. It's actually doing better than it was in the rose garden. We have more of the bubblegum vista petunias because I love that plant and the color. It's just such a pop of color. No matter where you are on the property, you can see it. This one's kind of getting taken over by the pumpkin, but this is my best chance for growing a massive pumpkin. So I'm leaving it go. We have some phlox blooming over there as well. This one is my most promising giant pumpkin. I'll show you the one that's growing over here, which I probably should take off. Right here, this one, still doing good. I'm leaving it on there just as a backup. But the one that I really want to do well is right here. You want to cover your pumpkin if you're trying to get it to go real large because the sun will harden it off. Look at these mating squash bugs. Get out of here. The squash or the sun will harden the skin and it won't be able to be flexible and stretch. You can see how large that pumpkin is. I'm going to keep it covered. But that pumpkin's getting big and the growth is noticeable on it every single day. We have the corkscrew willow out here. Just a gorgeous style willow with the yellow branching. A little baby liriope's blooming as well. It's got its buds on, getting ready to open. Big red hibiscus is just gorgeous right here. Adding just tons of color. It's pretty much the only thing blooming out here. It's got 9-inch blooms on it. And it's just full. We got a little bit of cleome and phlox blooming in the weeds there. The gladiolas are finishing up and the crocosmia is also finishing up. Got a butterfly back here though doing some work on the gladiolas. Still doing something. The Shasta daisy in the back's about done. This is the last bloom of the crocosmia. We have a smaller variety of the hibiscus here. I believe this is a Mars hibiscus. And it is a little bit smaller. It might actually go really nice in a different part of the landscape, and maybe I can get a bigger one for this area. Back here at the pond, the ramp bed is looking beautiful. Pollinators love the pink zinnia on the end. The hummingbird moth comes to these pink petunias in the back there. And then we have the bees always on the marigolds and the little dahlias we have here. The hostas, lilies, and the spiderwort are pretty much finished up. There are a couple blooms still popping off on the spiderwort. But look at my penstemon. My penstemon's completely browned off and dead. I don't know if it's just dying back because it's that time of year or if it actually died. So I'm really not sure. I don't think the seeds are viable yet. I think they're still a little young. So I'm not sure if it's dead or what. Let me know if you know. The beautiful yellow gladiola finishing up. Hey butterfly, see I told you the butterflies love the zinnias. And then I do have purple hyacinth bean vine climbing up the trellis here along the patio wall. You can see just how beautiful this flower is. I love this flower. Stick around, you'll be able to see how it turns into a nice burgundy red bean. And then you can harvest the seeds after that. Off the corner of the rose bed, we have the sweet autumn clematis or clematis. And right now, it is putting on flower buds. So I did just give this a pruning to try and tighten it up. It was looking crazy like Cousin It. So I did a pruning and tightened it up, and you can see how it killed off a couple of the ends. But I think I did it just in time because now it's putting on all its buds. I'm gonna leave it go from this point forward. so it can actually fill out with a bunch of beautiful fragrant white flowers. All right, so that is all for this week's garden tour here on August 12th. I'm sure I'm not going to get this video out on August 12th. It'll definitely be after that, so you'll be watching it probably when it's already cold. Let me know what your favorite part of the garden is, and if you would do anything here that I'm not doing yet, let me know, because I'm always looking for good ideas. That's all for this one. You can see me and Echo on the next one. Thanks for watching.